I'm obviously a developer at AfroLabs.
Yeah.
And then and I've been here for like 4 years now. It's my 4th year.
So how long have you been with the company?
Yeah. And then I guess you can ask, what was your role on the cowa bunga project?
Okay.
And my role was I assisted with the mobile application. So the way the cowa bunga app works, in brief, I don't know if David explained.
No.
There's a administration system called the DOS, which stands for Driver Operating System, where orders are captured. Orders for example, a retailer or a fast food delivery outlet, or something where you've got a product that needs to be delivered to a customer. And those are captured in what's called the DOS. So that stands for Driver Operating System. A Driver Operating System. All right.
Okay.
And DOS is kind of a play on words, because DOS also stands for Disk Operating System, which is what Windows, what basically the Windows platform is. So it's just a play on words, DOS.
Okay.
And that's run on a website, on a web page, on a website that's administered by people that are either sitting in the store, so in Nando's, or by ourselves over here. So that's basically online. And then the drivers all have mobile applications. When they go out on a trip, they take their mobile phone with them, run in the application, and that tracks their location. Every 5 to 10 seconds, it tracks their location and plots them on a map so that the branch manager can see where every driver is. And it also updates the driver's status for each delivery. So generally what happens is, when they go out, they'll go out with 5 deliveries. So they have those big bags, those tinfoil bags, like they keep that the delivery bags, and they are going to deliver chicken to 5 different people on a single run before they come back to the store.
Yes.
So they have their phones loaded with 5 different orders that they have to deliver.
Yeah.
And the phone says, okay, you're on order number 1, and the address is 35 Oak Street in Paris. Here's how you get there. So they obviously so then they start driving on their bike or their car to the customer. The phone then automatically sees, oh, okay, you are now 150 meters from the store. We're updating the status of your delivery from in branch to on delivery, because basically you can't be in the branch anymore. You're 150 meters away. So it automatically updates the driver's status.
Okay.
The driver then arrives at the customer. The system also says, oh, okay, you're 50 meters or less from the customer. I'm updating your status again to arrived at customer, because clearly you're very close. So it marks it as arrived at customer. The person then knocks on the door or rings the bell, or negotiates the security guard at any state, gets to the first person's front door, hands over the chicken. They then manually go and mark the order as delivered on the app. They say, okay, I've delivered.
Right.
At that point, then, if they're on a multiple order run, so in other words, if they've got 4 orders they have to deliver before they go back to store, it then automatically moves them on to the next delivery and says, okay, from here you've got to go to 65 Chair Street in Gardens.
Okay, so I guess so it automatically, like, kind of I don't know what the word is, but it automatically sort of plots them on a route that makes sense. So they start here and then they go to the next one. So it kind of arranges it for them.
Yes, it doesn't give them driving instructions. It doesn't, because that's that it gives them the opportunity to do it by giving them a button that if they press, it takes them to Google Maps. But it doesn't give them driving instructions. It just says, here's where you are, here's where you need to be, and there's a mark on the map. Here's the details of the order that you're supposed to deliver. You know, a burger, whatever.
Yeah.
Here's the contact details of the person if you get lost. And this, your status is currently, you know, on delivery or arrived at customer or at branch, or and those statuses, and what we've tried to do is automate as much of that as possible, so that drivers don't literally could just take their phones with them, and go. And you know what happens now, even if they forget to press the delivered button, once they start driving away from the customer, it says, oh, you arrived at the customer and now you're driving away from the customer.
But you have,
it's probably likely that you've already delivered, and it just pushes you to the next order. So it's kind of automated. And so that's the system in a nutshell. You've got a kind of an operating system where you kind of hand out orders to drivers, and the drivers drive around with the app, and the app tracks them and automatically tells them, you know, this is your next order, and then all that location data is stored in something called BigQuery. BigQuery is a Google product, and it allows you to query massive data sets. So what's useful for that is that they can do analysis on drivers, you know, thousands of trips, and they can see like what was the average trip length, duration. You know, were drivers, they can do all kinds of, you know, what was the average distance that each driver traveled on a shift or over a week. And they can see like, you know, what is the wait time, the average wait time for customers from the time that it gets captured in the system to the time that it gets delivered. What is the average wait time? Why is that useful? Because you know, you know what promises to make to your customers. So if your customer is waiting an average time of 25 minutes, you shouldn't say on your special or on your website, we guarantee delivery in 15 minutes, otherwise you get half price, because more than likely you're never going to reach that. So it allows you to do analysis of your operations, you know, like, because you've got thousands and thousands and thousands of location, you know, GPS coordinates that have been captured for each driver on every night, and you can draw all kinds of reports. So anyway, that's one of the things that this thing offers. But so my side was the application, all right? So I'm kind of like going about it a long way, but that's
but yeah, it's better that you give me, you know, I mean, obviously, with all the background reading I did, because, you know, when I first sat down with this, I had absolutely no idea what last mile delivery was. I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know about the problems that industry, you know, that leg of the, you know, that part of the supply chain. I didn't know any of that. So obviously, by the end of it, I got much better understanding. And then obviously, Brad and Kim explained it from like a more kind of layperson's perspective, but it is good for you to kind of rehash it, because it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of consolidating like my understanding of what it's involved. So it's fine. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah. So exactly. So I was basically, you know, built worked on the Android application. All right. So then I would say the next question should be, crucially with this project, Afro Labs used another system that they built for a taxi operation in Nigeria.
Okay.
And they used the system, and they kind of altered it to work for the cowa bunga last mile delivery model. And I guess the question you could ask people is, you know, based on the fact that you didn't write this from scratch. You kind of converted an existing application that you'd written for the taxi company, and you converted this into Kawabanga. How do you feel that went? Do you think it went well? Do you think it was a good idea? What was easy for you and what was difficult for you in developing this application?
Right.
That's very interesting, and that's something that I, as a developer, when I read this article, I would find that kind of thing very, very interesting. So, from my side, I found it very challenging. Okay, well, don't say. I found it rather challenging, right? Because this thing had been written for taxis, right? And taxis operate in a certain way. It's like the Uber model. You've got a dispatch. You've got taxis that are driving around. They get a call. So-and-so wants to get picked up. You kind of hit the button, say, yes, I'm available. The system says, okay, Stephen hit the button first. He gets the job, right? I then the customer gets a notification to say, okay, Stephen's on his way. He'll be there 2 minutes. I then pick up the customer, and the status thing goes, okay, you're now on your trip, and you know how Uber works.
Yeah.
It's slightly different from the last mile delivery for delivering fast food from a Nando's branch. It's not exactly the same thing. For one thing, in the taxi model, drivers are kind of self-employed, and they're using and they kind of like they bid for jobs. They kind of like they say yes, I'm available, and then whoever says that first gets the job.
So sorry, just to back up a bit. So you're saying that the app was built for the taxi industry, but a kind of an Uber model, not. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, because I was imagining, I wasn't thinking. So I was kind of thinking in my mind that I kind of thought you were lumping together like the taxi industry as a whole, like like taxis, like in taxis, like whether it's yellow cabs in New York or the Kumbis here but you mean specifically the Uber model where people are bidding and they're self-employed, and so you comparing it. So it was specifically for that type of type of taxi. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the challenge was firstly that we had to kind of change. We had to change the functionality to a last mile delivery model. Uber and last mile delivery is not the same thing, right? So a lot of the things had to be changed.
Yeah.
All the wording.
All the
wording. Yeah, all the wording in the models. So all the were taxi type wording. So you had
say wording, you mean code. What do you mean code wording? Like wording.
So for example, in the database, you had things like a passenger, you had driver, you had trip, right? Obviously, passengers goes on trip.
Yeah.
You had things like that. Whereas in last mile delivery, you don't have a passenger, you have an order. You don't have a trip. There were complications around that. Then there was a legacy Android application that had been written by a consultant for AfroLabs that was extremely complicated and very poorly documented. And I had to go in there and make like quite and wholesale changes to this thing to work for Kawabanga. So we had to morph it into a last mile delivery application. Okay. And I had to work on a code base that I wasn't familiar with because it had been someone else, and he had no interest in kind of developing properly documenting it. So it was challenging for me. But I was surprised at how quickly we managed to put together the application for version 1, and obviously the customer was extremely happy because they closed the deal with Domino's. And based on what we built, and we managed to get it working. So there were challenges, definitely from the app point of view, like making it work in a scenario that isn't for taxis, and understanding.
Just hold on. Sorry, they just sounded like they were killing each other then, and there was silence. I got worried.
Okay.
You there? Yeah.
But it went a lot quicker than if we had built it from scratch. which was great because it saved the customer money and it meant that we could get licensing from a piece of software that we'd already written. So it kind of worked in our favor and in the customer's favor. The next challenging thing for me, I would say, would be the tracking of the drivers. So they wanted very accurate, up-to-date tracking information, like every few seconds, which is tricky to do because it drains the phone's battery very quickly. And sometimes the phone will say you're getting an accurate reading in a location when you aren't, and then update the driver's status incorrectly. Or what happens now on modern Android phones is that
Wait.
Android doesn't like apps tracking people's location because it's an intrusion of privacy, and it's all kinds of bad things. So they make it very difficult for you, and especially when the app is in the background. So you've got your app list. If you hit this the square button on the Android phone, it brings up all the apps that are kind of currently running. So what happens is the moment your driver app is in the background, it stops tracking the location. And what it meant is that I have to force the app always to be in the foreground, which was a tricky thing to do, but we got it right. And the challenge for me was the design department at Nando's wanted a blue light brigade following around the driver.
I read about that. I don't know where I read about that. Somewhere about the blue light brigade. Just explain what that was.
So they wanted. So the customer, as part of the experience, the customer gets an SMS to say your order is on its way, and with a link. If they open up the link, it shows a map with where the driver is. So you can see. Oh, he's on the M3. He's about 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away. They wanted a line of police cars, 3 police cars behind the driver, as a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, like he's having a blue, he's been followed by a blue light brigade because you're important. But of course, if you think about it, the blue light brigade has to be following the driver, which means that you need to know what direction the driver's going in, right? What it also means is that the blue light brigade can't be following the driver in a straight line, because what if the driver is driving by the sea, and the blue light brigade is like coming out into the sea? A straight line would be kind of like pointing in, you know what I mean? Or in a field, or it wouldn't look right, because the blue light brigade has to be on the road. But if the driver's going on a very windy road, it can't be in a straight line.
Lynn, I'm sorry, Lynn. Okay, I'm very sorry, Lynn. It's really fine. It's really fine, my boy. It's flat now. It's really flat. It's fine. Look, I'm just telling now. It's very important. Oh, it's fine now, Lynn. I'm sorry, just thinking about. So this. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're being a bit too abstract. So
yeah, fine. It's fine. Don't worry. I think it's going to be quite difficult for me to explain. I can maybe draw a picture for you, but that was just one of the challenges, was the blue light brigade. I can even show you a screenshot, which you can maybe include the article.
I understand that the whole tongue-in-cheek thing, because I don't know where I read it, but it did say that like Nando's, because that's the that's the image, is about being like a bit cheeky, and they wanted this blue light brigade. So I understand, the idea. But I got a bit lost there when you were talking about following them in a straight line and getting lost in the sea. But anyway, show me a screenshot.
I'll show you a screenshot. Yes. Yeah. So those were the challenges for me. All right. But what was cool for me. So the next question, you can ask it in a double barrel question. What was challenging for you, and what did you enjoy about the working on the project? So. What I really enjoyed was Brad and Kim, their positive attitude, their friendliness, their, they didn't come with kind of like airs and graces, or this kind of like superior client attitude that you sometimes get.
Right.
They're very, very nice young people, and that was a pleasure. And they had realistic expectations, and They didn't like, I want this done yesterday. They weren't rude, and that was very cool. The fact that we had reused our code base to build something from an existing product, and we changed it was great. And the fact that we were able to add value for a very large organization like Nando's and Domino's and other ones coming up is obviously, gives you a huge kick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So that was very cool. I also enjoyed obviously working with the team, Richard and Malta. Great guys, and both very knowledgeable, and both very excellent coders, work very quickly, and yeah, that was very enjoyable for me. Yeah, what else can we ask?
So just to yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not going to ask anything about their roles, because firstly, that's what I actually wanted to come out like kind of without me really knowing anything.
Yeah.
But like with the app was developed for this Nigerian taxi company, but like you obviously sold it to them in the end, or
yeah,
was
it was quite a complicated thing. It was kind of like a joint venture. So Afrolabs had rights to use the code based on certain caveats, which had been made. So you'll have to get the details from David, but Afrolabs did have the right to reuse that code. It wasn't that we just stole the code.
Okay. Because obviously, so I'm not wrongly thinking that is like
totally. No, you can't just reuse code from.
You can't develop something for somebody, make them pay for it, and then reuse it for somebody else.
Totally,
that is not.
Totally. So that needs to be made very clear that wasn't what we did, because obviously then.
Yeah, because I mean, and obviously nobody would ever do that and then talk about it openly. But
totally.
It's nice to be able to mention that, like very like very simply, like in one line. That is, but I just have to think about how to phrase it. Yeah. And then
maybe another question you can ask is what do you think about Bunga has helped it kind of succeed like fairly quickly?
Because it's very quick.
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of things, right? From a technology point side, the technology works well. So the app is solid. The server is solid and scalable, because we use Google Cloud, which is very, very scalable. Which means that we didn't have to worry about scaling or security or any of that stuff. That's kind of comes out the box with Google Cloud. So the technology is very, very solid, which obviously is great for Afrolabs. And I think Brad and Kim make an excellent team. Kim is quite, she comes from, she will have told you, but I think she comes from like quite a technical background.
Yeah, she's an engineer.
Yeah. And Brad has got a lot of kind of business experience with delivery.
Yeah. Yes, because you use the Aramex.
Yes. So they kind of complement each other, which is what a perfect co-founder team needs to do. It's pointless if you both kind of have the exact same skills. And they have a very good attitude, which is like crucially important as well. You know what I mean? It's not just about the ability to execute. And the fact that they were able to get this application for a lot cheaper than if it had been built from scratch, that's crucial, because it meant they made the investment kind of really work for them.
Yeah, but I mean the thing is, that wasn't something. Yeah, I mean that wasn't. That was part of their success. But I mean they obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that was serendipitous.
Yes.
I mean they're like that. I mean obviously we know blah blah blah. There's no such thing as just luck. But I mean, if you just kind of look at it just like face value, like it's very serendipitous that they were looking for this and you already had developed this, and so it was just very lucky that your paths crossed.
Yes, and kudos to David, who kind of saw the potential with the taxi app, because when you first told me, I was like, what, are you kidding me? No, that's ridiculous. That's a stupid idea. And we did manage to do it. So, you know, kudos to David for kind of seeing the opportunity to reuse that code. So yeah, I guess, I mean, I think, you know, that kind of covers.
Okay. We're going to add, you were going to, oh no, yeah, the last question you added was, why do you think bunga finds this? Tell me, is there any question, I mean, yeah, I guess, you know, you did what geeks do, because the questions were quite generic, but your answers were, you know, had a bit of tech in it, which is exactly what I wanted, because,
Yes.
you know, you know, I don't know what tech questions to ask, you know what I mean? Obviously, like, if I was a tech copywriter, I'd be able to like ask some very clever, you know, questions about, you know, because I would know the technology that's involved, but I don't. So, you know, I'm asking generic questions, but I don't want a generic answer, you know?
Yeah, well, there's two. I mean, firstly, obviously, when you're doing a Skype chat, it's a lot easier because you start with a generic question, and then when they start talking, you can go, "Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that." Or, you know what I mean, you can prompt them in a certain way. The problem with asking questions, you know, is kind of like, firstly, you might get them to talk about tech. You have no idea, like, what the hell they're talking about. So, I mean, maybe what you can do is you can say, like, what are the challenges? Specifically, what were the technical challenges,
The technical
you know, what did you like about the project from a technical point of view? You know, but you know, I think the thing is, you're going to organize a Skype chat with Malta and Richard, right? Keep the questions broad, and then if they're not giving you the kind of technical answers that you want, then you can just supplement it. And what about the tech? Because Richard and Malta both worked on the server side, on the DOS, the driver operating system.
So they were the DOS, but then what did you work on?
I worked on the app,
the
Android app.
Oh.
So if you're not getting the kind of the technical, then you can prompt them, you know what I mean? But keep it generic, because you don't want you know, talking about like multi-threading on Python, and you're like, what? You know, you don't want to get too bogged down. So
I don't, but at the same time, you know, like I said, you know, like going back to what David said, that he kind of, the target audience is comprised of, you know, those three different groups. So that's why it also has to come across as like appealing to other developers, you know, like, they can to what you're talking about. If I'm talking about it in such a general way that I might as well be talking about making pizza, you know what I mean, then obviously it's not authentic, and it doesn't have any kind of like real substance, you know. I'm just talking about anything. So I have to try and get at least some of the tech out. Even though it might not make sense to me, you know, I will have to kind of, you know, wade through it and try and like pick out things. And if I'm really lost, then obviously I'll ask you. But you know, it can't be like, like I say, you know, it can't be about, you know, it come across as too non-specific. That's what I mean. It can't be too non-specific, because then, you know, then it's not really. Then other developers won't be able to relate to that, because it sounds like, oh, this is like, you know, an article written by somebody who normally writes about, you know, fashion. You know, like, so that's why. But anyway, I get what you're saying. If they get overly technical, then I'm going to get totally lost. But because I'm recording it, I can play it again and again and try and like extract some kind of meaning out of it. And what I do understand, I take out. You know.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yes, maybe you could say what specifically what technically was challenging for you. What technically did you think did you enjoy about it? And you can also say, like, in the, you know, why do you think this product has worked and so quickly? Like, you can ask, like, what about the, you know, the tools that you specifically use, which is Google App Engine, Google Cloud.
Right.
Do you think that those contributed towards the success of bunga? Because everyone here is going to be complimentary about that, and that can definitely be used as one of the the selling points in the blog post about how we use Google App Engine. It means that we can write stuff that's very scalable, that we don't have to worry about the infrastructure. We just deploy it and it works, and customers happy, we're happy. So you can definitely ask that. Obviously with Jess, you can't, her role was design, so your questions have to be slightly different.
But I can
you would
technical, because I can still say what are the technical challenges, because she has her own technical challenges, right?
Sure. But then you would say, were you happy with the design brief? Like, you know,
or what were the design challenges?
Yeah, what were the design challenges? Were you? She did the website as well. Like, so just tell me briefly. Tell me about the website.
The website.
Yes. Do you think that? Are you happy with the way it turned out? Do you, just kind of more designy type questions and yeah,
sorry,
I think that.
So just going back to what you said earlier, what tools did you use? I mean, I know, I know. You might think this is like an odd thing to say, but if I ask what tools did you use, and they go, what do you mean by tools? Then I would actually know what I mean. You know what I mean? Like that. Also, like I said, happened yesterday. I would say something, and they were like, "What do you mean?"
Don't ask that question. What tools did you use?
There's so many questions.
No, yeah.
Must I not ask that? Because you said Google. Yeah.
Just for thinking how to phrase it. No, okay, don't ask that question, because they'll be like, "What do you mean? Like what dev tools?" And then it'll.
Exactly. So I want the answers to come out, the answers that you mentioned, but I'm just scared that if they, I can't explain.
Yeah. So don't worry about that question then.
But you said like, but everybody will be very proud to talk about that because Google, and then you.
Okay, what you can say is, I understand that Afro Labs is a big proponent of Google Cloud.
Right.
Do you think that your use of Google Cloud contributed towards the success of this project?
Okay.
And then it's not
it's either if it did and no, it didn't. Yeah. And if it did, how did it?
And if it did, why? And if it didn't, why?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's better. Then I can't. Then they can't kind of put me on the spot. Like, what do you mean? Yeah. Okay. I'll do that. Yeah. I'll do that.
And yeah. So I think hit up Malta and Richard and organize Skype chats with them. Sooner the better. So that our conversation is kind of fresh in your mind, and then just obviously maybe email the question to Jess. It sounds like she's.
I'm gonna put these. I'm just gonna put these all together now and see and send them to Jess. Are you there?
Final.
Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You got cut off there, but.
I think with the feedback from all four of us, that should be more than enough for you to paint the side of Afro Labs.
Yeah. So so there's about like 5 or 6 questions. I think that's about enough.
Yeah, I mean it's one project. It's not like we've been working on this like full time for 3 years. So I think 5 or 6 questions.
Enough,
yeah.
I mean, in terms of a Skype call, it shouldn't take more than half an hour, which kind of makes sense. I asked them just over 12 questions, and that took me to exactly an hour, and it makes sense. I mean, it's their company, their baby type thing. So yeah. Okay, thanks. I'm going to use all those questions, and I'm just going to type them up now for Jess and send that to her.
Cool.
And I'm just kind of, if I don't hear from from Malta and Richard, I'll have to just remind them. They obviously forgot to
And why in the mid, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks,
Okay.
people.
No problem. Bye. Bye, guys. Bye.